What's up, guys? Welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast. It's Zach and Jake back with the NFL breakdown, as everybody's been waiting for. I've been getting them DMs coming in asking about my picks. We're here ready to give it out. It was a little rushed. We've been busy, but we got it out, and we're hoping for a good NFL season. So, Jake, which division we going to start off with?
Yeah, so we're gonna start in the AFC, just because definitely gonna be a lot more mixed up this year. But I want to start with the AFC East. We got the Jets, Dolphins, Bills, and Patriots. Obviously, we got Aaron Rodgers coming back from a big injury, so looking to see kind of how the Jets are going to perform. I'm expecting them to kind of take the division. The Dolphins are going to be right there. I think with Tua getting his money, Tyreek's getting paid. Um, they're going to be back, and I think their defense is going to be a lot better next year. So I'm looking for the Dolphins to kind of bounce back. I think the Bills are going to have a little bit of a rocky season, but that's just me personally. And then the Patriots, I think they still need to find a quarterback. So we'll see where that lands them. But yeah, what do you think about the AFC East?
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you right there. I do think it's the Jets' year to finally go out and get the divisional. I think that they win it. I think it's going to be close. The Dolphins obviously choked it last year to the Bills, who I believe have won four straight now. I do think the Bills fall off a little bit. I'm not a fan of Sean McDermott as a coach, and then obviously losing Stephon Diggs is big. They lost more pieces than that. I know Poyer left for the Dolphins and a little bit more on the defensive side. I do think Keon Coleman's a good pickup there on offense. I don't think he's going to fill the full void of Stephon leaving. But they should have a good season. I just don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Dolphins obviously choked it last year. Their offense is going to be phenomenal again. Like you said, all the guys are getting money. They went and signed Odell as a wide receiver 3 or 4. A-Chain should be healthy, as well as a lot more of the team that wasn't healthy come playoffs last year. I know they lost Christian Wilkins to the Raiders, which was big, but they should be good. I think the Jets already had a shot at playoffs last year. And so now this year with the healthy Aaron Rodgers, obviously I gave out Brees Hall last week as my offensive player of the year. And Tyron Smith's a huge piece to that offense. So one, keeping Aaron Rodgers healthy, but if he stays healthy, that bolsters their offensive line to a top five potentially in the league. And then having Garrett Wilson on the outside is going to be a huge help opening up the field. With an already stacked defense, I think the Jets take that division in a close division.
Yeah, it's clear that Aaron Rodgers had one request: please get me an offensive line so I can't get hurt on the first snap of the year. So I would expect with the three, I think they picked up three new offensive linemen, all like two of them veterans. So I expect they're going to be right back to playing good ball again with Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. It's pretty hard not to have a good team when you have Aaron Rodgers on your team, and that defense with Salah is going to be outstanding. They were ridiculous last season. They should have won
Mm-hmm.
probably 12 or 13 games with how good their defense was playing, but they couldn't score to save their life, so pretty much ended them. But yeah, I look forward to seeing how the Jets bounce back this season. I'm kind of transitioning to the AFC North. We got the Ravens, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers. That division, once again, is just going to be absolutely stacked this season. Probably going to be my favorite to watch this year. I just love the quarterbacks and all teams other than really Deshaun Watson. But I think Russell Wilson on Pittsburgh's even going to be an interesting pickup because their defense is always top three, top five. So I don't see that changing at all this year. And Russell Wilson adding him to the picture instead of a first year Kenny Pickett or second year Kenny Pickett is going to be a completely different ball game for that offense. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how he's incorporated into that team. But if it doesn't work out, then it's just going to be a pretty meh year for them because they're in the hardest division in football. So personally, I like the Ravens a lot this year. Lamar is going to have a bounce back year, I think, this year. Obviously, won the MVP, but they couldn't get it together in the playoffs. The Chiefs are just that good when it comes to the playoffs, and I don't expect much to change. But I think somehow this season the Ravens are going to manage to not have to play the Chiefs in the playoffs. So hopefully that'll happen, and they'll be able to get back to the Super Bowl. But right now, I'm really liking the Ravens for sure in the preseason.
Yeah, I definitely like the Ravens. Obviously, coming off of one seed coming out the AFC last year, and getting to the playoffs every year, they start to throw the ball and get away from running it like they do every year. So they keep losing in the playoffs. One, their running backs can't stay healthy to make it through, and I don't think they're going to have that issue this year with Derrick Henry coming in and
Yeah,
being a load of a back, I think they get to the playoffs and they stick to running it. So with that, I think they get to the AFC Championship game this year. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Um, Everyone loves the Bengals. I was kind of leaning on having the Bengals miss the playoffs. I did sneak them in there just for the wild card, just because everyone wants to see him there. Joe Burrow is going to be healthy. Jamar Chase is phenomenal. T. Higgins is franchise tag, so I'm interested to see what happens with that. But I do love Jermaine Burton. I think he's a phenomenal pickup out of Alabama. So that's just a three-headed monster receiving the ball from a great quarterback. And then I think Chase Brown's going to be starting running back for them. So not too worried about the ground game. Obviously, Mixon did enough to allow the offense to be versatile. I think Chase Brown will be able to fill in. Anybody can run well with a good offensive line. So we'll see how they do. I think they had some bigger losses on the defensive side. So I think it's going to be
Yes.
more of the offense overpowering the lack of defense.
Yep, that's the first thing I was going to say is I just see a complete mismatch on the opposite sides of the ball. Their offense is going to be really good, have a lot of firepower, and then on the flip side, I just see their defense being one of the worst in the league this year. I didn't see any like significant improvements over the last season, and they haven't been good since the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
I don't expect them to be good. And in this division where you got the Ravens defense, the Steelers defense, and the Browns defense, and you have to play each of those teams twice, I'm not liking where you're kind of sitting there. Even if you have Joe Burrow and those three wide receivers, I
Hmm.
love that. But everybody knows in the NFL, defense wins championships. So obviously, it's
Yeah.
going to come down to that, and especially playing those three teams 6 times throughout the season, it's a lot to ask for. So we'll see kind of how that plays
Yeah.
out.
With that being said, too, I will say I have the Browns in the playoffs, in between the Bengals and the Ravens. I think that they were great last year with a bunch of different quarterbacks, and no Nick Chubb as
Yep.
well. So Chubb being back, obviously he's not going to be healthy for the start of the year, maybe mid-season, but their defense is phenomenal enough to keep them around 500 once he comes back. Deshaun's in a second year back getting into it. Obviously, Amari Cooper's still a stud on the outside. And then I think they added Jerry Judy, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be interesting having him come over from the Broncos. They should be pretty good. I think this is the first year in forever, which makes no sense. I feel like the Steelers got better, but I think it's the first year in
Yeah.
forever they don't go 500. I think Tomlin finally ends that streak at year 18. I think they'll probably sit around that 7, 8 win mark, but because of how good that division is, I think that this is the year that they don't make it. Just because their weapons on offense are not good, so I don't really care how good your defense is. The NFL leans on the offense nowadays. Russell Wilson, I don't think should be starting. I think it should be Justin Fields. And I definitely think I will see that switch mid-season. I don't know if it's going to be week 6. I don't know if it's going to be week 8. I'm kind of feeling that 6 to 8 week area where they switch it up, go with Fields, and I think both quarterbacks go about 3-4, 3-5. And so because of that, I think that they don't really have an identity on offense, and they'll miss the playoffs and go under 500 finally.
Yeah. Keep your eye on it for a prop. Justin Fields to start week 6 through week 8. All right. Yeah, no, I'm completely in agreement. I feel like Pittsburgh's going to be the one lacking behind just because they're not going to have it kind of together like the other teams are. The last couple of years, they've all been playing together. So it's going to be new for Pittsburgh. It's going to come down to whether their defense can score as much as they have in the past because if they're getting defensive touchdowns, I mean, you can win any game. So we'll
Yeah.
see kind of how that plays a factor into their season. But then
Hmm.
kind of transitioning to the AFC South, um, kind of the division I'm kind of the least excited for just because I think that the Texans are going to run away with it. But it's the Texans, the Jags, the Titans, and the Colts.
Hmm.
Personally, I think the other three teams besides the Texans are just going to be like 500 or maybe a game or two under 500. I think the Colts are going to get marginally better. I think they'll probably be like around 500 with Anthony Richardson back and healthy, and they did get a lot of weapons around him. They got a new coaching staff. I really do think that they're building something over there, but it's just going to take a lot of time. I think Tennessee, they just I just don't think that Will Levis has enough to propel them without Derrick Henry. When they had Derrick Henry, he was kind of putting together some good performances in games with DeAndre Hopkins, but without Derrick Henry and them not being able to run the rock consistently, even with the Cowboys' former running back Tony Pollard.
Tony
I
Pollard, yeah.
just don't see it happening. They're going to really have to open the offense up for Levis, and I just don't see that happening, especially in that division. But yeah, I love the Texans. I think the Jags are going to be okay as well, but their defense is always kind of hit or miss with a question mark next to it. So I'm just running with the Texans. I love the Texans in that division. They've added so many good pieces over the last 2 years that it's hard not to see them making a deep run in the playoffs this year.
Yep, I'm right there. Texans are one of my favorite teams. I think I've been saying it, and we'll get into that with the playoff talk a little bit
Yeah.
later. But I definitely think the Titans are going to be the worst in the division there. I know they got Calvin Ridley, they got D Hop, they got Pollard, but Pollard's not even starting at running back, which tells you about how much offensive line makes a difference because Tajay Spears is going to be getting the start, and he is a stud. But they're not Derrick Henry when
Hmm.
there's an offense built around that. Obviously, Vrabel's gone, so their coaching staff's going to be different. I think they're just going to have to figure it out with a younger team. D Hop will probably leave mid-season and try and get to maybe a Jets or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have a shot to win something. So I don't think they know. Um, I don't think they're old enough to really play well, mature football. Don't expect much from them. Obviously, I don't like Anthony Richardson, but I do like Jonathan Taylor. I like Shane Steichen a lot. I like their
Yeah.
defense. They got Pittman. They added Adonai Mitchell from Texas. So they definitely have some weapons to be, like you said, around 500. I think they might get to 8 wins. I know that's kind of about what they're expected at. I'm thinking a couple less than that just because I don't like Anthony.
Yeah.
And and then the Jaguars should be about the same as last year. Huge choke to miss it last year, not win the division. That was wild.
That's kind of a
Trevor
recurring
Lawrence,
theme with them.
yeah, Trevor Lawrence got paid, but they lost Calvin Ridley, but they gained Gabe Davis, I think it was,
Yeah.
from the yeah. And then ETN had a phenomenal year last year. I think they should be able to do it again. Josh Allen on the defensive side there for them is phenomenal. I think they'll make the playoffs, probably get that wild card area, and then the Texans, I think, will win that division by a couple games.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Yeah, we'll pivot because that division's probably going to be the least exciting out of the bunch.
Hmm.
AFC West is the last AFC division we got to go through. Got the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Chargers, and the Las Vegas Raiders. That's
Hmm.
always a fun division to watch. I really look forward to seeing how Minshew performs with the Raiders because they could kind of go from a 500 team with an all right defense and Josh Jacobs to not having Josh Jacobs, but Minshew mania, and they're starting to build more pieces around him. I like what they did in the draft. I thought the Raiders did a really good job in the draft. Not something I've been really saying a whole lot about them in the past, but I did think that this season in the draft they did really well. I think they got the center out of Oregon, Jackson Powers Johnson. With him up front, that's just going to add a huge valuable piece to them because I think he plays a lot like Jason Kelsey, and obviously we know how important Jason was to the league. So I really look forward to seeing kind of how the Raiders perform. Chargers, I'm a little bit scared about just because I'm not a huge fan of Harbaugh as a coach. I do like his coaching methods, but I don't like his style, and I don't know how it's going to work with Justin Herbert. And I don't know exactly what's going on with Herbie, but I just don't hear much about him anymore. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how he's doing. I know he had a little injury, but I don't think that's going to affect him too much going into the season. And then you got Denver with Bo Nix. I don't think Bo's going to start. I think I can't remember who it was.
Zach Wilson or
No,
Stidham.
Stidham. Jared Stidham's going to start for them. At least is what I heard. But Bo looked really good in the preseason, so I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing Bo get some minutes at some point.
Hmm.
Especially if they're losing. I like if they have Stidham in. I expect they'll probably lose their first 3 or 4 games of the season just because their defense also starts out really rough with the Broncos. Like last year, they had 70 put on, I think, in like the first 4 games by the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So I expect their defense to start out rocky again, but then they kind of figure out throughout the season and start to play really well. So I hope that Bo Nix gets a shot with them, but I don't expect it to be a good season for Denver. But yeah, Kansas City is definitely going to take that division. I don't see them having really much opposition again. They just got better in the draft. They did better in the offseason. So yeah, they just keep building. So I expect that dynasty to kind of continue.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's the one I was kind of torn about, as I talked about a couple weeks ago, because I think the Raiders have the potential to go win that division tied at 11 wins or so. But also, I don't know if Devontae Adams is going to be there. I don't know what their run game is going to look like with, I believe, Zamir White back there. So I ended up having them also not very good this year. I think all three other teams, the Broncos, Raiders, Chargers, could all sit between 4 and 6 wins, honestly. Um, the Chargers, not only did Herbie kind of look a little shaky, not sure what's going on, post a little bit of injury there, but they lost Keenan Allen and Mike Williams,
Yeah.
his top
Yeah.
two targets. Mike Williams, obviously, to the Jets is another weapon for Aaron Rodgers with that pick over there, and then Keenan to the Bears. It's just going to be interesting to see what they do. They also lost Austin Eckler, I'll add, to the Commanders. So their offense is going to look different, and it already was struggling. Their defense, they kept Bosa and Khalil Mack, but they can't stay healthy either. So I do
Yeah.
think that they're going to have like 5 or 6 wins. I don't think it's going to be great. Like you said, with Stidham starting or Zach Wilson or Bo, they're just kind of going to rotate younger quarterbacks and see if they can find something. Um, they lost Judy, and they already were having a struggling offense. I think that they're going to be rough yet again. Like you said, with the defense, they weren't phenomenal like they were in years past. Lost some more talent again this year.
Yeah.
And then the Raiders, I think, have the potential to, they're the team that's beaten the Chiefs in recent years. I think it maybe even just last year. And so if they can, somehow piece together some wins and sit around that 10-11 mark with the Chiefs, having won head to head with the Chiefs, they'll have a chance. But I'm expecting that probably won't happen. Gardner Minshew will get them 5 or 6 wins, and that's about it for the year. So Chiefs should take the division at an easy 12-win season or so.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting, just the Chiefs to run away with it. I do expect them to have a few battles, kind of like they did last season during the regular season, where it wasn't all easy and perfect and looked great. I expect them to have some tough games. There are teams that obviously are going to be out to get them. So I do think that they're going to have a few of the L's, but just in general, they're such a clutch team that it's tough not to believe in them when the going gets rough.
Hmm.
But yeah, now let's actually, before we hop over to the NFC, let's go ahead and go into the AFC divisional games while we're kind of
Okay.
still in the AFC. Um, let, let's just do the first rank game, or first rank, I should say, is Ravens. So they would have a bye, I think, personally. I think you're on
Mhm.
board as well. But why don't you go through the games a little bit for the divisional?
What we all want to see, Burrow versus Mahomes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so with Arrowhead being the home and Mahomes coming off a couple championships, I definitely think that they win that. Like we mentioned, I don't think the defense is there for the Bengals to be able to keep up. Be a fun matchup per usual, but the Chiefs just have that identity to be able to make it past that first round.
Mm-hmm.
I have the 3 seed is my Texans, and I have them playing against the 6 seeded Dolphins, who again, star-studded offense,
Yep.
and the defenses are both solid. I like my young guns. I like C.J. Stroud over Tua, so I definitely like the Texans at home in that one. The 4-5, I have the Jets winning that division, so they'd be the home at the 4, playing against the Browns. Both phenomenal defenses, low scoring battle. Expect Aaron Rodgers to get it done at home over a Deshaun Watson. So that would kind of lead us into that second round. That one
Yep.
seed, I would have the Ravens, obviously coming back with Derrick Henry, having the health. I mean, expecting that they have the health, which they never do at running back, but with him, I think it might be different. They actually run the rock in the playoffs and they go get a win, which they need. So, I mean, that would be
Yeah.
against that 4 seeded Jets, which would then leave the 2 seeded Chiefs and the 3 seeded Texans. And I like my Texans and I'm riding them all the way. I love the pieces that they have this year. I love D'Amico Ryans as the head coach, as I mentioned last year or last week. I love the additions to the line with Daniil Hunter up there and Aziz Al-Shair at the linebacker spot, Jimmy Ward at the corner. They added a lot of talent that I love, so I'm going to stick with them. And I think this is the year that what is it, 6 straight years the Chiefs have made the AFC Championship game, and I think this
Yeah.
is the year. I think this is the year it stops,
Okay.
which then puts us with the Ravens, who have yet to get there. Um, just keep choking. All they have to do is win one game to then get there and not play the Chiefs, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think it ends up being the Ravens at home against the Texans. And I think that the Texans' offense moves the ball too well that it puts pressure on the Ravens to need to throw it, which gives the Texans the advantage to go win that football game and win the AFC Championship.
Right on. Yeah, I agree. I think that the Texans are an easy ride this year. That team is young, hungry. They got some like really good veterans in the offseason, and they got D'Amico Ryans to run that team. they obviously are going in the right direction, and that's just keep your eyes on a little prop Texans to make the AFC Championship right now, because that's probably going to be
Yeah,
some good early money.
you're getting
Um,
about plus 800 right now. It was about 1100, to start the offseason, but they're making some moves. I definitely think Chiefs Texans is like the safe plays over there, and then the Ravens, and I think the Jets with a little bit of a bounce back would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, now that we got the AFC figured out, let's kind of transition over to the NFC. We'll start with the NFC East, which is the Cowboys, Eagles, Giants,
Hmm.
and Commanders. Obviously, the Commanders made a lot of huge additions in the offseason. Cowboys haven't done a whole lot. The Giants look okay. They looked pretty good in the draft. I must say, I thought they drafted pretty well. And so far in training camp, it seems like they got a little bit of rah-rah about that team. So they may be a little better, but I don't expect too much. And then the Cowboys, and then the Eagles, obviously, I think are going to be really good this year. Jalen Hurts just continues to prove that he's a good quarterback, and they build around him. So I think the Eagles are going to be a really good team this year.
Hmm. Yep, that's. I'll start with the Cowboys and the Giants, who I think are both going to be pretty bad. Um, the Cowboys have potential to be 500, and everyone's got their win total at 10.5 as a chance to beat the Eagles for the division. I don't see it. We lost 26 pieces of the offseason, and I think we added two. At least that was the last that I saw. One of those two being Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to be our running back one, by the way, I might add. So the two, I think, worst running back rooms in the league are the Giants and the Cowboys. I think it's obvious. CD hasn't gotten paid, Micah hasn't gotten paid, Dak hasn't gotten paid, and yet we lost all of our free agents also. So I don't know what people have been watching to think that the Cowboys will be good. McCarthy's going to be on the hot seat. I think he probably loses his job. Maybe they wait till the end of the year. They'll probably be trying to figure it out, not playing well, losing games, and Dak will probably get benched if he hasn't gotten paid to try and let Trey Lance do something. I don't think Trey Lance is good, so I could see the Cowboys win 4 or 5 games. If they win 10, like I wouldn't be shocked if they won 10, but I'm sitting there thinking they'll win 7 or 8. Just because I do like the Eagles, I think that they'll have their number this year. They should be very good again. Um, no team repeats as division champs, so Cowboys won't win it this year anyway. But I love the Commanders. I mean, we talked about it before. They added Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Brian Johnson. But then their offense is going to look different. I mean, they got Biotic as the center from the Cowboys. They got Wiley and Cosme on the lines, so it'll be better. Diami Brown, Dotson, Terry McLaurin still there, Zach Ertz, a dual threat quarterback in Jaden Daniels, Austin Eckler, and then their defense. Dan Quinn being a defensive guy, they got Deron Payne on the line with Jonathan Allen still. They went and got a 10 sack guy in Dorrance Armstrong from the Cowboys. Frankie Louvu was a top linebacker. Bobby Wagner, we all know the name. Dante Fowler Jr. St. Juste is a good corner that they have. They went and got a top corner in Jeremy Chin from the Panthers. And then I like some of their draft picks. Jean Baptiste came from Notre Dame. He's going to be a stud linebacker. And Jerzon Newton on the defensive line coming out of, I believe it was Illinois. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Commanders make some noise. And everyone's got their win total at 6. That's my favorite play. Go hammer
Slam
the
that
over.
over. Yeah.
I do have them making the playoffs this year, just because of the uncertainty and so many questions and the fact that we know the Eagles will be good. I gave the Eagles the division by a game, but I do think the Commanders could very well go out there and hit 10 wins. Who knows what Jaden Daniels is going to do? I will say, with all those pieces added, I do think that they get Brandon Ayuk at some point this season and put him back with his college quarterback of Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. So interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how the Commanders, they added so many pieces in the offseason with all the offensive linemen. Then obviously they had two good wide receivers in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, but they even got
Hmm.
better. I can't remember who they drafted, but they had another good draft pick that they added, an out wide receiver. So Jalen McDaniels is going to have a lot of people to throw the
They got
ball
Luke
to. And
McCaffrey. So
yeah, they got McCaffrey too. So they're
yeah,
loaded. They definitely did a
Austin
good job.
Eckler, Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they should
Yeah.
be all right.
Yeah, they're going to be really good. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how they can develop as a team, because obviously that team is going to be kind of a new look as a
Hmm.
unit. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how they develop as the season goes on.
Hmm.
And then kind of transitioning to the NFC North, we got the Bears, Packers, Lions, and Vikings. Not expecting too much out of the Vikings now that JJ McCarthy's out for the season, obviously. I do think Sam Darnold's going to be the better choice out of the two. The Vikings are trash. I just think that that's a pretty bad organization. I don't think their defense is anything to write home about. I think that their offense without Kirk Cousins is going to look completely lost. That's just kind of what I expect. I don't think they're going to be good whatsoever. I like the Bears this season. I think Caleb Williams is going to get that team at least 8 wins and get them back to 500 and on the right track to being a winning team again. So
Hmm.
I really like the Bears to go like at least 500. So I'm sure I could probably find a prop for them to like 6.5 wins or something somewhere.
Yeah.
That I'll probably play as well. And then the Packers. Jordan Love's obviously led the team to a nice win in the playoffs against the Cowboys last season. But I just don't think he's going to be able to replicate that. Green Bay is a really tough place to play, so I don't know how well he's going to continue to adapt to playing Green Bay where it's super cold, especially in the middle of winter. And then I expect the Lions to win it again. Jared Goff, I think, has proven that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he is probably the most underestimated quarterback in the NFL. That dude can absolutely sling it. He's got really solid running backs behind him right now. They're starting to build a really good defense behind MCDC, and I think that that team is just going to be incredible this year. I hope that they can go far. I really enjoy watching the Lions. I think it's pretty cool that how they get Eminem involved and get him hyped again to be a Lions fan because pretty much the only thing I think of with the Lions growing up is Megatron and the fact that they were like 0-16 every year. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing them do good again.
Yeah, this should be a fun division. Like you said, the Vikings defense, nothing to write home about. I think their offense will be good. I really like Kevin O'Connell as a coach and as an offensive coordinator. I like Sam Darnold. He's never had a good chance to play. His offensive line is still not good, but the weapons are. Aaron Jones is a good running back. TJ Hawkinson's a great tight end. Justin
True.
Jefferson and Jordan Addison are great wide receivers. So I think they definitely have the offensive weapons to go out there and win some games and compete in others. But I don't think that they'll be 500. I think they'll be a 5-win team.
Yeah.
Um, right after that, I'm thinking the Bears and the Packers both end right around that 10-win mark, both vying for a bit at the playoffs to kind of see who can get there. I do think adding DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, all, and then drafting Romo Dunze, all with Caleb Williams, like that
Yeah.
offense could be nice.
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone says, Williams has that Mahomes likeness, and he does, but he's also very young. Having watched him at USC, he makes very immature plays where he tries to do too much, and I think that's going to probably cost him a couple wins where they could potentially get an 11th or 12th win and make the playoffs. I think they'll probably be closer to that 9-10 win mark, like you said. If you find that 6.5, 7.5 line, I do like the over on that this year. I think that they're going to play well. Their defense got better even after the trade deadline last year. Eberflus should be in that Coach of the Year candidacy just because the team has more talent. The Packers, I do want to remind everyone, I believe they started 4-7 or 3-6 or
True.
something like that. So I don't think that they're as hot as they ended the year going 8 of 9 or whatever it was. So with that, I do think that they're a good football team. They added Josh Jacobs, who's a phenomenal running back, who I think is better than Aaron Jones. They still have Dylan, and now Dylan's fighting for running back too.
Yeah.
So
Man.
with Josh Jacobs there and that offense, obviously Jordan Love I think is good. I think they'll be right at that 9-10 win mark. I could see them, up to 11. But then I do think the Lions will win that division right around 12, 13 wins. They should be very good again, just with the youth of that division. And like you said, MCDC's got them playing some ball. Number one in passing yards since 2017 is Jared Goff, yours
Yeah.
truly. So he's got the weapons all around him. He's got a healthy Jamison Williams all year this year. I expect to see more of Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think that they're going to have a fun team.
Yep, they're going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. I do think that this division is a little bit weaker, so it's going to give the Bears a real shot with a rookie quarterback. I do think that that was a huge draw for Caleb Williams is the fact that the Vikings and the Packers may not be as solid as the Lions, and it may give him a solid shot to really get some experience. And it really didn't take Patrick Mahomes much experience in the NFL to start kind of just kicking butt. So I'm hoping that maybe half a season through, Caleb will kind of get into his groove and start making less and less mistakes and just being Caleb and making huge plays. Because if he can do that, they're going to win a lot of games. They have a lot of stud receivers with a ton of speed, and their defense is starting to build. So I'm looking forward to watching Chicago this year for sure.
Mahomes did sit behind Alex Smith though.
Yeah, that's true. But he was pretty much plug and play. But Caleb, he's just play. So we'll see how it goes. Transitioning to the NFC South, we got the Saints, Falcons, Buccaneers, and the
Woo!
Carolina Panthers. I doubt you're going to make the same mistake as last season and pick the Panthers again.
I
Um,
like
but
Bryce Young.
but they are looking a little bit better. I'll give them that. Yeah, last season they were atrocious. It was tough to watch. But yeah, again, it's pretty much the same thing with this division this year. Personally, I think the Bucks are going to win it. I like Baker. I like that team. I think they're fun to watch. I just don't think the other teams got like that much better to be able to be better than the Buccaneers or yeah, I just don't expect the other teams to be able to have gotten that much better. So yeah, personally, I'm taking the Bucks. I think the Falcons could be better, but it's going to depend on whether Kirk Cousins kind of meshes with the offense or not, and how much Penix sits, and like how much beef is created with that whole situation.
Yeah, I I don't have anyone in that division doing great. I'll have the Falcons
Yeah,
winning the division for sure. There's not really any question in my mind about that one. Um, I think the Panthers are going to suck. They got worse than last year, in my opinion.
yeah,
They lost Burns off the defense, Chin off the defense, Louver off the defense, which was their three studs. A couple of which went to Commanders, that's all I'm gonna say. And then, so I think they could easily win one game, maybe,
yeah,
or I think they'll go in. I think they'll go under five. So their win totals at 5.5. I'm taking the under. I think that's cake.
yeah.
I will say, I don't think the Saints are any good. Like I said last year, I think the coach sucks. Kamara, we don't know what's happening. Derek Carr, we don't know what's happening. Olave is good. Mike Thomas isn't there anymore. Like we don't really know. Their defense is still about the same. I think that they're going to be a 5-win team this year. Honestly, I don't think they'll be great. The Buccaneers, I think, will sit right around that 6-7 win mark. They won the division, I think, 3 straight years. I think twice was with 8 wins. So
True.
I'm not so like it's not like they are a 10-win team that can go win the division. I think that they'll win seven, maybe six. Same offense. I like Baker, like you said, but I do think the Falcons got better, at least on the defensive side of the ball in the last week. I know that they signed Justin Simmons and someone else. There was another good linebacker it was that they added. Kirk Cousins on the offense, I think, is definitely going to help. I know that they got a receiver that got hurt, but Bijan should be able to come more into his own this year. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, you'd expect to get more involved. Algiers still a good running back there. Matt Judon was who they just got from the Patriots, so Judon's phenomenal. AJ Terrell, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, like that could be a pretty good team. They still got Grady Jarrett up front, and then David Onyemata's there as well. So I do think they made enough moves where the Falcons pretty easily win that division, just because I think every team sitting around 8 wins got a little worse, and I do think they got better. So I could see them at 11 or so wins.
Right on. Yeah, if I had to choose another team, it'd be the Falcons. I don't think the Saints or the Panthers are going to be any good, and the fact that they're not going to be any good also gives me more reason to back up the Buccaneers and the Falcons because I think those are
Mm-hmm.
pretty much two free wins for both those teams. So yeah, I do like either one of those teams. I think the Falcons. I just think it's going to come down to who's starting at quarterback. If Kirk can really fit into the role and lead a veteran off like a lead a offense as a veteran, just because
Mm-hmm.
if he doesn't do well in the first 5 weeks, which is actually pretty typical for the Falcons, they don't play well in the very first 6-7 games of the season, and then they kind of start playing better. But if Kirk doesn't play well, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't just plug and play Penix. So we'll see kind of what happens. I know they just paid Kirk a ton of money, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody's paying quarterbacks a ton of money, so it's nothing that we're not
Except
used
Jerry.
to.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly, except Jerry. So yeah, we'll kind of see how that division plays out. And then transitioning to the probably the most stacked division other than the NFC North or AFC North is the NFC West. We got the
Mm-hmm.
Rams, Niners, Seahawks, and the Cardinals. Even the Cardinals picked up Marvin Harrison Jr. and are going to have a healthy Kyler Murray with a great James Conner in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I look at each of these teams and I just go, this is going to be an absolute battle and a war every time these teams play each other. And it is going
Yeah.
to be so fun to watch because I think that Obviously, it's going to come down to like the veteran leadership and then big plays, like what teams are going to be able to make the big plays. In terms of who got a lot better, I thought the Rams looked amazing in the draft. They drafted two stud defensive linemen out of Florida State who I think are going to play great with each other. Um, I just think that the Rams, with Puka, with a healthy Cooper Cup, with a healthy Stafford, they're going to look a lot better. So yeah, I'm expecting the Rams will be right there with the Niners. Obviously, the Niners are pretty much a mainstay. They just continue to get better, or they're going to be as good. But yeah, I like the Rams and the Niners so far in the West.
Yep, I'm definitely right there with it. For some reason, I'm not loving the Niners this year. I don't know if it's like a Brock injury, Christian McCaffrey injury, like something's not sitting right. So I feel like they're not going to make it far in the playoffs for whatever reason. I did still take them winning the division and getting that one seed in the NFC. But I do think the Rams are going to be right there behind them. Obviously, Kyron Williams was a top five running back last year. You have a healthy Cooper Cup and Stafford. They already made the playoffs last year. Their offensive line is phenomenal. And then their defense continues to get better. Obviously, we talked about the two Florida State guys last week going on that defensive line. I
Yeah.
do think Rams will be very good. I think the Seahawks are kind of going to shit the bed this year. I don't think they'll be very good. Like 5 wins is kind of what I'm seeing for them. Gino's not the guy. He's asking for more money, knowing he's only going to get one more bag, and he's all right. Lockett's getting on the older side. DK could request a trade for all we know because he was looking at one last year. I love Kenneth Walker, but again, he's been injury prone the last few years. Their offense got worse, their defense got worse, so I think they have a rough year. Arizona, I think, could be fun. That
Yeah.
that could be a team that I think could like surprise 9 wins, or
Yeah.
surprise 10 wins even. I wouldn't be shocked. I do think that they'll sit right around that 7 or 8 win mark most likely. But like you said, Kyler Murray is healthy. James Conner's a great running back. Marvin Harrison's a great receiver. I know they added Zay Jones, who's not a scrub. Dortch has
Oh.
been Dortch has been one of Murray's favorite targets. Trey McBride came into his own as a tight end last year. I know that they got Jonah Williams as the right tackle that was playing with the Bengals.
Hmm.
Paris Johnson was their draft pick, the big guy at Ohio State last year, and
True.
he's just gonna get better. Offense should be very fun. Keep games interesting, win them some games. I do like Jonathan Gannon and what he does on the defensive side without all the big names. With that being said, he did add Kaiser White, who he had with the Eagles briefly. He got Sean Murphy Bunting from the Buccaneers. Buda Baker's still there. I
Yeah.
don't think their defense, has all the big names, but just because of how good of a defensive coach he is, I think that they could be very fun. And I'm expecting an over on that 5.5 win total. I think they'll probably get 7 or 8, just because I do like the Rams and Niners, but they could be a fun, possible 9, 10 win team. So excited to see what the Cardinals can do this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't see a reason why they couldn't steal a game against the Rams or the Niners as well this season. I
Hmm.
could see them splitting with both those teams this season, which would leave them right there at the 9 or 10 win mark if they're able to take care of their out of season games. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the Cardinals are definitely a sleeper team in that division. The Seahawks with a new coaching staff, with a pretty mid quarterback and a defense that got significantly worse. I just don't expect them to be you know, there in that division. But Rams and Niners are going to make it super fun to watch. Cardinals, sleeper team. So, yeah, I'm loving them. NFC
Hmm.
West is going to be an absolute bloodbath this year, and it's going to be a real joy to watch, even though I'm not a Niner fan. Kind
Yeah.
of transitioning towards the playoffs for the divisional, we got the Niners with the bye. But then I'll kind of let you go through the rest of the divisional games.
Okay, yeah. So I'm thinking that Niners week one's a bye, so that means we're getting left with the 2 seed and the 6 seed, 2 seed and the 7 seed.
Yep.
Um, 2 seed, I had the Eagles, and I have them playing against the 7 seeded
Packers.
Packers. Yep. So I do think the Eagles go out there. I think they have too much talent, and again, like I said, I don't think the Packers are as hot as they looked last year. If there's a team that's going to stop the run, it's probably going to be the Eagles up front.
True.
So, I mean, with that defense that they have in the front, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Bryce Huff, their linebackers of Devin White, who they added from the Buccaneers also, hence why I think Buccaneers get a little worse. Josh Sweat's still there. I know they got Kaylee Ringo out of Georgia, and then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's back from being with the Lions last year. Still got Darius Slay. Drafted Cooper DeJean and Quinion Quinion Mitchell.
Yeah.
So their defense should be better again this year after sucking kind of last year. I definitely think the Eagles take that. The 3 seed, that leaves me with the Lions, and I have them playing against the 6 seeded Commanders.
Hmm.
So I definitely like the Commanders this year, not postseason. I like them regular season. I'm going to say they're too young, and if they make the postseason, I don't think it's going to be anything special. I think the Lions have a much better team, and if that's the matchup, I think they would wax them. Lions are going to be fun. Commanders, I think, are just going to be young and have some talent that they could piece together. So that's just my team I snuck in there. The
Yeah.
4 or 5, that leaves me with the Rams going in and playing the Falcons. Um, like always, Kirk Cousins doesn't win playoff games,
Yeah.
and although I think the Falcons got better, they're used to playing their division of teams that aren't good. They don't have enough weapons either. Matthew Stafford's been there; he's won that. Cooper Cup, like we said, Kyron, Puka, and that defense is going to be fun to watch. I love Sean McVay. I mean, he and Dan Quinn 30-1 odds for Coach of the Year. I love, so that's just kind
Yeah.
of fun to keep an eye on. And then that will put me with that second round matchup of the Rams and Niners that we love to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
And so with that, like I was saying, I don't think for whatever reason, I don't think the Niners are going to be there this year. I think we're going to avoid that Eagles Niners rematch again that we all want. And I think that's because Matthew Stafford is a dog. Brock Purdy's all right. Like I said last year, I think they would have won it all with Darnold and get there, but not win with him. I still think the same thing. Jimmy Garoppolo got there with the Niners. Like you don't have to be anyone special to go back there and play and get there. So I don't know. Christian McCaffrey's kind of due for an injury. I'm expecting something, but I do think the Rams are going to top them in the playoffs and make it to the NFC Championship game. Now that they have a healthy year, I would expect. And then that leaves us with the Eagles and the Lions.
Yep.
And I think the Eagles are out for a revenge tour after getting knocked out last year. Adding back to the defense, basically adding Saquon to the offense that already contains Devontae, AJ, Dallas
Yeah.
Goddard.
Stacked. Yeah.
And then I think they drafted Johnny Wilson out of Florida State, who's like 6'6", and the guy's got butter fingers, but I mean, the guy's 6'6", so if he can get that under control, he'll be good too. I know that they got one other guy. Paris Campbell, I think, was the other guy that they got. So, yeah, they'll be good. Jason Kelsey's gone, so a little bit less push this year. But the rest of the line's still going to be top 5 in the NFL. So, Eagles, I think, will end up winning that one over the
Yeah.
Lions. Yeah,
That leaves the Eagles and the Rams.
that leaves the Eagles and the Rams, which is obviously the Super Bowl winner from a few years ago, and then the Super Bowl loser from a couple years ago,
Yeah.
which I think would be fun to see those teams go at it. Sirianni versus McVay, Stafford and Hurts, and then Puka and Coop, and then you got Devontae and AJ and Kyron versus Saquon. The two
Yeah.
offensive lines are both phenomenal. Like, I think that'd just be a star-studded matchup, and I think that the defense is better and has that experience more so on the side of the Eagles. As well as having the home field going into Philly would be tough, long flight from LA. So I do think that the Eagles would pull that off, but I think that would be a thriller of a matchup. I think that would be phenomenal. If not, I think Lions Rams rematch would be fun, or a Niners Eagles rematch would be fun.
Yeah.
But I'm expecting it to be the Rams and the Eagles this year.
Yeah, Eagles, Rams, NFC would be super fun, and combine that with a Texans, Ravens in the AFC. I think that would just
Hmm.
make a great NFL season. That ultimately leaves us to the big one, the Super Bowl. You're gonna have the
Hmm.
Texans and the Eagles.
Yep.
Who are you taking, Zach?
Yeah, I'm going with the team from Texas because the Cowboys ain't
Wow.
doing it. Cowboys ain't doing it
Okay.
this year, and as much as I do like the Eagles team, and people have known that for a few years, obviously the last few years they've been great, and I love the Texans. I love D'Amico Ryans. C.J. Stroud, I definitely didn't like when he was drafted. He's grown on me, but I love even if he gets hurt. Davis Mills has experience. Joe Mixon's a solid back. Damian Pierce starter a few years ago. You add Stephon Diggs to an already Robert Woods. Nico Collins
Yeah.
was the number one. Tank Dell was a number one. John Mechie, people forget, is even on the team, and he was a top
Yep.
draft pick. Noah Brown is still there, who was a wide receiver 3 for the Cowboys. Then you got Dalton Schultz and Brevin Jordan, who was a high draft pick. You got one of the best lines now with Laramie Tunzel, Scruggs, Shaq Mason. And then on the defensive side, we already addressed it a little bit. Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, Aziz Al Shair, Derek Stingley Jr. is going to be healthy. Pitter's going to be phenomenal. Jimmy Ward's got experience being there. Desmond King was incredible player for a long time. They went and got C.J. Henderson, who's been phenomenal, who was a top draft pick a couple years ago, as was Jeff Okuda that they went and got. Autry came from the Falcons with experience. Derek Bennett from the Eagles. They got the experience on the team of people that have been there, as well as the young guns that have that dog in them. And I love that. And I think that D'Amico Ryan and CJ are people I can get behind more so than the division rival Eagles. So I'm taking the Texans to go win it all. It's plus 1,600 now. It keeps dropping. So it was plus 2,200 at one point, plus 1,800. Now it's plus 16. Eagles is plus 1,500. So both of those I think would be fun plays to kind of ride out for the whole year.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely going to be laying something on the Texans for sure. I do love that pick. If I wasn't going to pick the Texans, I would pick the Ravens. I think they are also looking really good this year, especially with Derrick Henry. It's just hard not to pick them. With that team adding Derrick Henry, it didn't look like they had to give up a whole lot, and that lineup and that roster is just unreal, including defensively. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the Ravens play. I think if it's not the Texans, it's going to be the Ravens. And then if it's not the Eagles, it's going to be the Niners or the Rams. So, yep, we're right there. I think we're right on top of it. But, yep, that's going to wrap it up for NFL divisionals and playoffs and Super Bowl and other picks for the rounds. But, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate the feedback we've been getting from friends, from texts, or whether it be comments on the YouTube channel. If you guys could like, subscribe, it just allows us to get the YouTube algorithm rolling. We're going to try and keep putting weekly videos out for you guys. Next week, we're going to start with some college football week 1 picks, as well as just maybe some just random picks for NFL futures that we haven't already gone over that we may like, that may pop up over the course of the week, or that it may have popped up since the last time we talked about it. But yeah, until then, we hope you guys enjoy this one, and we will see you next week. Peace.
Yep. See you.